In my earlier videos, I have taught that usually when we tell the time, we usually write it as the hours first and then the minutes. However, this is not the same when we speak about the time. You see, I have written here that the hours go first, then two dots, and then the minutes. However, we wouldn't say that in actual speaking. We wouldn't say that it's 5 hours and 20 minutes, but we'd say it as something else, which today this video goes over. In this video, we're going to be looking at what happens when the minute hand goes to any of these 4 points, the 12, the 3, the 6, and the 9. So, before we start telling the time aloud, we need to remember one thing, that the clocks always move clockwise. When we say clockwise, we mean that it always moves to the right first and then to the left around the clock. You can see that also counts up the clock. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. It counts forward instead of backwards. This is something that's very important and that we need to know. So, when thinking about clocks, we can imagine them to be circles. We also imagine these circles to have quarters, which is what we're going to be using when we're telling the time. So, let's see this simplified clock that I've drawn, and let's watch the minute hand as it moves around it. As we can see that the minute hand is currently at 12. We call this o'clock. Before the o'clock, we normally say what the hour is. We can see that the hour hand, the shorter one, is pointing at 5. So we would say that it is 5 o'clock. Let's see when the minute hand moves around to the 3. When the minute hand moves to the 3, we would say that this is quarter past. We say that it is quarter past because we can see that a quarter of the circle has been covered. The minute hand has moved a quarter around the circle, so it's moved a quarter past the circle. However, unlike o'clock, we say that it would be quarter past and then the hour. The hour hand is still kind of pointing at the 5, so we would say that it is quarter past 5. Let's see what happens when the minute hand moves again around the clock. We can see that it is now at the 6. When that minute hand is now at the 6, we call this to be half past. We say this is half past because now a half of the circle has been covered. See, there are 2 quarters that have been covered, and we know that 2 out of 4 pieces is equal to a half. So a half has been covered. So we would call it half past. Again, we would say the hour after the words. So we would now say that it is half past 5. Now let's see how the minute hand moves again around the clock. As we can see now, it is pointing at the 9. We would call this to be quarter to. However, let's look at the hour hand. It has slowly been moving this whole time from the 5 towards the 6. We can see that the minute hand has moved 3 quarters around the clock, so only 1 quarter is left to be moved around. Since it's been moving towards the hour 6, we would call this to be quarter to 6. We're saying that it's only a quarter of the clock left is to be covered until we reach 6 o'clock. And, before you know it, the minute hand has moved again finally around the clock one more time to 12. And we've known this before, if it's at 12, then we're back to o'clock. But since the hour hand has now been moved to 6, we would call this 6 o'clock. So let's look back at everything we've learnt. When it's at 12, we would call it o'clock. When it's at 3, we would call it quarter past. When it's at 6, we would call it half past. And when it's at 9, we would call it quarter to. These are the 4 main points that we are meant to know. However, if we want to know the points in between them, then you'll have to check the next video.